Why should she receive the river's blessings? Ekon would mutter to himself, wandering the outskirts of Kaya, where the laughter of children deepened his grief. His bitterness twisted his wisdom into cynicism, and he began to conceive a plan. He envisioned stealing her treasures, believing that tarnishing Adia's reputation might somehow alleviate his own anguish. In the enchanting village of Soma, young Adia, driven by curiosity and courage, discovered a submerged palace deep within the river. Inside, she encountered a trapped spirit who promised treasure and prosperity in exchange for its freedom. With bravery and a kind heart, Adia solved the riddles of the ancient palace and freed the benevolent spirit, bringing not only wealth, but also lasting peace to her village. Her heroics were celebrated far and wide, turning Adia into a beloved figure and a beacon of hope for her people. As Soma flourished, tales of her deeds spread, inspiring many, but also stirring hidden forces in the shadows. Join us as Adia's journey continues, where new challenges await and dark forces rise, threatening to unravel the harmony she fought so hard to achieve. In the neighboring village of Kaya lived Ekon, a man once buoyed by the laughter of his young daughter. However, his world crumbled when she died unexpectedly at age 5. Her absence transformed him from a man of warmth and laughter into one consumed by sorrow and silence. Each day deepened his isolation as he struggled to find solace in a life that seemed unrelentingly cruel. Ekon's spirit became fertile ground for envy, as tales of Adia's valor and the prosperity she brought to Soma reached him. He questioned the fairness of fate that allowed a young girl like Adia to thrive while his own beloved child was taken so early. Each mention of Adia's triumphs twisted a knife in his wounds. Ekon watched families in his village celebrating her success, and his heart grew colder with each passing day. Why should she receive the river's blessings? Ekon would mutter to himself, wandering the outskirts of Kaya, where the laughter of children deepened his grief. His bitterness twisted his wisdom into cynicism, and he began to conceive a plan. He envisioned stealing her treasures, believing that tarnishing Adia's reputation might somehow alleviate his own anguish. Late one night, under the cover of darkness, Ekon scribbled his scheme on old parchment, a meticulous plan fueled by envy and despair, aimed at undoing all that Adia had accomplished. Ekon roamed the riverbank under the twilight sky, his murmurs of discontent mingling with the whispering winds. These words, filled with pain and a desire for retribution, drifted into the darker depths of the river, where forgotten spirits lingered. These ancient, dark forces of the river, untouched by the light of the benevolent spirit Adia had freed, heard Ekon's plea and saw an opportunity to extend their influence beyond the forgotten waters. These spirits, resentful of their neglect and eager to disrupt the newfound harmony in Soma, whispered back to Ekon, promising him the power to achieve his dark desires. Intrigued and desperate, Ekon listened as they outlined a pact. In exchange for his allegiance, they would grant him the ability to sow discord and reclaim what he believed was rightfully his. Eager to fill the void left by his daughter's death, with any semblance of meaning, Ekon agreed, sealing his fate with the shadowy entities. Under the cover of night, Ekon performed ancient rites whispered to him by these spirits. By the flickering light of a lone candle, he drew symbols in the dirt, calling on the dark forces of the river. With each word of the incantation, the air around him grew colder, and the river's murmuring turned into an ominous roar. As he concluded the ritual, a surge of dark energy enveloped him, empowering him with sinister abilities that felt both exhilarating and terrifying. Ready to enact his plan against Adia and her village, Ekon's eyes gleamed with newfound resolve, driven by the dark pact he had just forged, marking the beginning of a shadowy chapter for both villages. Under the cloak of the new powers bestowed upon him by the river's dark spirits, Ekon began his sinister campaign against Adia and Soma. His first act was to infiltrate Soma under the guise of a traitor, bringing with him artifacts and trinkets imbued with subtle curses. As he mingled with the villagers, he sowed seeds of doubt and fear subtly, whispering tales of spirits betrayed and the dangers of meddling with forces beyond one's understanding. Ekon's words were like a slow poison, eroding the trust and unity that Adia's heroics had built. He spoke of visions where the river's wrath would reclaim its gifts and bring ruin to those who dared steal from its depths. Each item he sold carried a charm that, unbeknownst to the villagers, deepened their worries and stoked their superstitions. By night, Ekon performed rituals by the river, calling on the dark spirits to strengthen his influence. The river, once a source of life and joy for Soma, began to reflect the darkness seeping into its waters. Fishermen started to bring back empty nets, and the water, which had sparkled so brilliantly under the sun, now flowed murky and troubled. Ekon watched with grim satisfaction as the village that had celebrated Adia now whispered in hushed tones of impending doom. As weeks passed, the change in Soma became palpable. The vibrant celebrations had dwindled, replaced by gatherings that spoke only of the strange misfortunes befalling their home. Adia, once the beacon of hope, felt the weight of her village's growing anxieties. Unaware of Ekon's machinations, she resolved to seek guidance from the river spirit, hoping to uncover the source of her village's misfortunes. Concerned by the palpable shift in her village's fortunes, Adia decided it was time to consult the river spirit, seeking insights into the sudden gloom that had overtaken her people. Early one morning, she went to the river, the site of her prior triumphs, and called upon the spirit. However, the river remained ominously silent, its waters dark and unyielding. Feeling a deepening dread, Adia pressed on, determined to find answers. With no response from the river spirit, Adia turned to the elders of Soma. They gathered around her, their faces etched with concern, as they discussed the old legends of the river, tales of balance and retribution, of spirits both light and dark. The elders warned her of ancient entities, dark counterparts to the benevolent spirit she had freed, who might seek to restore what they perceived as a disturbed balance. Armed with this knowledge, Adia embarked on a journey to seek the counsel of a wise hermit rumored to live deep in the forests beyond Soma. Her journey was fraught with challenges. The path was treacherous, the woods denser and darker than she remembered. Shadows seemed to watch her every move, and eerie sounds echoed through the trees, heightening her sense of isolation. After days of travel, Adia finally found the hermit's abode, a humble hut covered in moss and hidden by towering trees. The hermit, an old woman with eyes as clear as the river, listened intently to Adia's concerns. With a knowing look, she spoke of a balance that must be maintained between light and dark, and of the dark river spirits who had grown envious of their light counterparts' liberation. She warned Adia of the corruption that these spirits could spread if left unchecked, hinting that someone might have unleashed this darkness upon Soma. Adia left the hermit's hut with a heavy heart, understanding more about the forces at play. She knew she had to confront these dark spirits to save her village, but the path forward was clouded with uncertainty. As she made her way back through the forest, the realization that she might need to face more than just natural elements weighed heavily on her mind. As Adia returned to Soma, her mind teemed with the hermit's warnings and the gravity of her new quest. The village's atmosphere had worsened. A palpable cloud of gloom hung over the once vibrant community. Determined to confront the dark forces, Adia sought the wisdom of the village shaman, a keeper of ancient rites and a conduit to the spiritual realms. The shaman, an old man named Duma, with eyes that had seen many seasons, listened to Adia's tale with growing concern. He agreed to help her, suggesting a ritual that could possibly reveal the source of the dark influence. Together, they gathered sacred herbs and items needed for the ceremony, each step meticulously prepared to ensure their plea to the spirits would be heard. Under the new moon, they performed the ritual at the river's edge. The dark waters swirled ominously as Duma chanted ancient incantations, his voice steady despite the chilling wind. Adia, standing beside him, held the golden orb, now dimmed. feeling its once vibrant energy pulsating weakly in her hands. As the ritual reached its climax, the river began to froth, and a thick mist rolled over them, obscuring everything in sight. Suddenly, through the mist, Adia saw visions of the dark river spirits, twisted, shadowy figures that mocked and hissed, their presence a stark contrast to the benevolent spirit she once knew. The figures pointed accusingly at her, blaming her for disturbing their slumber. The vision faded as quickly as it had appeared, leaving Adia and Duma shrouded in a heavy silence. The shaman, visibly shaken, warned her that these spirits were not easily swayed and that her journey was far from over. In the following days, Adia observed Ekon, the trader from Kaya, who had become a frequent visitor to Soma. Something about his demeanor struck her as odd. His eyes, she noticed, often flickered with a shadow that seemed unnatural. Recalling the hermit's words about dark forces and balance, Adia wondered if Ekon could be linked to the misfortunes befalling her village. Determined to uncover the truth, Adia decided to follow Ekon discreetly one evening as he left the village. Her suspicions grew as she trailed him to a secluded part of the riverbank, where he met with shadowy figures that materialized from the mists, clearly the dark spirits she had seen in her vision. Overhearing their conversation, Adia's heart sank as Ekon spoke of his alliance with them, revealing his plan to use their power to bring Soma to its knees as revenge for his daughter's untimely death. Armed with this knowledge, Adia rushed back to Soma to alert Duma and the elders. Together, they convened an emergency meeting, deciding that the only way to save the village was to confront Ekon and sever his pact with the dark spirits. Adia knew this confrontation would not only test her courage, but also the very essence of the bonds within her community. At dawn, the village gathered at the central square, where Ekon was to be confronted. Adia, with the support of the elders and Duma, stepped forward as Ekon approached, his demeanor defiant yet tinged with a trace of fear. "Ekon," Adia began, her voice steady but filled with sorrow. "We know of your suffering and the darkness that has consumed you. But aligning with these spirits and bringing harm to innocent people will not bring back your daughter, nor heal your heart." The crowd murmured in agreement, their faces a mix of anger and pity. Ekon, cornered and overwhelmed, lashed out, denying the accusations at first, but eventually crumbling under the weight of his actions. The dark spirits, sensing their host's weakening resolve, manifested beside him, ready to defend their pact. A tense standoff ensued, with Adia and the villagers on one side, and Ekon, supported by the dark spirits, on the other. The air crackled with spiritual energy as both forces prepared for what seemed an inevitable clash. As the standoff in the village square intensified, Duma stepped forward, raising his hands to calm the rising tumult. He began to chant softly, a plea for peace and understanding, invoking the river's benevolent spirit to aid them in their darkest hour. The air vibrated with the power of his words, and slowly, the dark spirits surrounding Ekon began to waver, their forms flickering under the force of the chant. Adia, seeing an opportunity, approached Ekon slowly, her voice gentle. "Ekon, this path of revenge will only lead to more pain. Let us help you find peace. Your daughter would not want this darkness in her name." Her words, sincere and heartfelt, reached Ekon, piercing the veil of his grief and anger. Tears began to form in his eyes as the reality of his actions became clear to him. Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled as the river itself seemed to respond. A luminous figure emerged from the water, the benevolent river spirit that Adia had once freed. It approached the gathering, its presence calming and powerful. With a voice that flowed like water, it spoke to Ekon, offering forgiveness and a chance to mend his broken heart by releasing his anger and embracing the community that had suffered because of him. Ekon, overwhelmed by the spirit's magnanimity and Adia's forgiveness, fell to his knees, repenting his actions. The dark spirits, realizing their hold over Ekon was weakening, tried to intensify their grip, but the combined presence of the village, the benevolent spirit, and Duma's chants diminished their power. Slowly, they dissolved into the morning mist, their influence waning as Ekon's resolve to make amends strengthened. With the dark spirits gone, a palpable sense of relief swept through Soma. Ekon, now freed from the spirit's influence, pledged to right his wrongs, beginning with a heartfelt apology to Adia and the villagers he had wronged. The entire community gathered to witness this act of contrition. His words, though simple, carried the weight of genuine remorse and a desire to mend what had been broken. In the weeks that followed, Ekon worked tirelessly alongside the villagers, repairing the damage he had caused. He brought out his tools and skills as a craftsman, helping to rebuild parts of the village that had been marred by the dark spirit's presence. Adia, seeing the genuine change in Ekon, often joined him, offering support and guidance as they worked together to mend both the physical and emotional scars left by the recent events. The atmosphere in the village gradually transformed from one of uncertainty to one of collective healing and rebuilding. Children began to play in the streets again, their laughter a balm to the ears of all who heard them. The elders, who had watched over their community through its trials, now spoke words of encouragement and unity, reinforcing the bonds that had been tested but not broken by the darkness. As Soma returned to its former vibrancy, the river also regained its clarity and strength. Fishermen's nets were once again full, and the waters sparkled under the sun. The village celebrated this renewal with a grand festival by the river, marking a new beginning and the strengthening of community bonds. The festival featured traditional dances, music, and a feast that brought together every family in joy and gratitude. During the festival, Adia was officially recognized as a guardian of the river. This title, bestowed upon her by the elders and blessed by Duma with the river spirit's approval, was not just an honor, but a responsibility she was eager to uphold. Ekon, too, was honored at the festival. His recent actions to amend past misdeeds symbolized the village's capacity for forgiveness and growth. As the festival continued into the evening, Adia stood by the river, her thoughts drifting to the adventures past and the lessons learned. She felt a deep connection to the water, her role as guardian not just a title, but a calling. The celebration around her was a vivid tapestry of life and laughter, a testament to Soma's resilience and spirit. Late one evening, after the festivities had calmed, Adia walked along the riverbank, enjoying the peace that had once again settled over Soma. The gentle flow of the river and the soft rustling of leaves created a melody that soothed her soul. As she walked, she thought she heard a whisper, much like the one that had first led her to the river spirit. This time, the whisper was clearer, suggesting that her adventures were far from over. The whisper spoke of distant lands and rivers beyond her own, where other spirits and communities needed a guardian's strength. Adia felt a stir of excitement and a sense of duty. Her journey as a guardian was just beginning, and the river was calling her to broader horizons. She pondered the vast network of waters connecting lives and lands, feeling a pull towards distant shores where her help was needed. Sharing this new calling with Duma the next morning, she found encouragement and wisdom in his words. The river connects all things, Adia. Your destiny might lie beyond Soma, in places where your courage and spirit can bring about great change, he advised. This affirmation filled her with a sense of purpose as she prepared for a journey that would take her far from home, eager to meet the challenges and embrace the opportunities that awaited her as a guardian of not just her river, but many. Loved following Adia's journey? There's so much more adventure and mystery waiting. Don't miss out on her ongoing quest to protect the rivers and their communities. Subscribe to our channel for more enchanting stories and be the first to witness her new challenges and triumphs. Hit the bell icon to get notified about our latest uploads so you never miss any of Adia's adventures. We want to hear from you. What do you think lies ahead for Adia? What new mysteries do you think she will uncover? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing from our community. Like and share this video to help more adventurers join us on this magical journey. Together, let's dive deeper into the enchanting world of African folktales and beyond. Thank you for watching and supporting our journey. Subscribe now and be part of Adia's next great adventure.